Aston Martin just invested millions in a brand new era. New factory. New leadership. Adrian Newey. Full Honda Works partnership. 2026 was supposed to be their championship reset. Instead, after just 2 days in Bahrain, they are reportedly missing 4 full seconds per lap. 4 seconds. In modern Formula One, that is not a gap. That is a collapse. And here is the part that makes this explosive. The Honda power unit inside the AMR26 is allegedly running in emergency mode. Limited revolutions. Restricted electrical deployment. Struggling to even break 300 km per hour on the straight while rivals push far beyond that. If this is calibration, they can recover. If this is design, this season could be over before it begins. Because what leaked from Bahrain suggests this is not just a slow car. It may be a fundamentally compromised project. Stay with me, because what is really happening inside that Honda engine could define Aston Martin's entire future. The first signs of trouble were subtle. No dramatic engine blow-up. No smoke. No fire. Just numbers. Numbers that did not make sense. On day 1 in Bahrain, Aston Martin's lap times looked conservative. Understandable. New car. New regulations. New power unit. But by day 2, the pattern was impossible to ignore. While Ferrari dipped into the low 1-minute 34s, Aston Martin was circulating in the high 1-minute 38s. That is not fuel load. That is not sandbagging. That is a structural deficit. And then Lance Stroll said it out loud. We need to find 4 seconds. He did not hesitate. He did not soften it. 4 seconds to be competitive. When a driver admits that publicly during testing, something is wrong. But the lap time gap is only the symptom. The cause appears to sit deep inside the Honda power unit. Engineers reportedly detected a critical anomaly in the energy recovery system, specifically linked to the MGU-K and its synchronization with the new sustainable fuels. That forced Honda into an extreme safety map. Revolutions capped. Electrical deployment restricted. Power delivery inconsistent. The engine was not being unleashed. It was being contained. Reports suggest the engine could not exceed roughly 11,000 revolutions per minute on the straight. The limit is 15,000. That difference alone explains massive top speed loss. And the speed trap numbers confirmed it. The AMR26 failed to break 300 km per hour. Meanwhile, rivals were touching 320. 20 km per hour is not aero. It is horsepower. Or in this case, missing horsepower. But here is where it becomes more complex. Drivers reported clipping. Mid-straight power fade. Electrical deployment cutting earlier than expected. That means the hybrid system is not just limited. It is unstable. And when your energy recovery system behaves unpredictably, the entire car feels compromised. Because modern Formula One is no longer just internal combustion. It is integration. Engine. Hybrid. Software. Cooling. Fuel. All synchronized. If one element is misaligned, everything suffers. Fernando Alonso spent most of his day running validation programs. Sensors covering the car. Long runs. Thermal monitoring. Not chasing lap time. Just gathering data. That tells you the priority. They are not tuning for performance. They are diagnosing survival. And that shift in focus is critical. When a team moves from development mode to damage control during testing, the entire trajectory of the season changes. Because development requires stability. And stability requires reliability. Right now, Aston Martin appears to have neither. But here is the key question. Is this simply conservative engine mapping to protect hardware? Or is the hardware itself under stress? If Honda is limiting revolutions to avoid destructive vibration or overheating, that suggests something deeper than calibration. And when overheating concerns appear, the chassis becomes part of the story. The AMR26 features aggressive packaging, very tight bodywork, minimal cooling inlets, designed for aerodynamic efficiency. But Bahrain's heat exposed potential thermal strain. Mechanics repeatedly removing the engine cover. Constant internal checks. That is not routine. That is caution. And when you combine power limitation, energy irregularity, and cooling concerns, you get a pattern. A car that cannot operate at full potential without risk. And in Formula One, if you cannot run full power during testing, you are already behind. Because everyone else is learning at maximum performance. Aston Martin is learning at reduced capacity. And every lap lost at full output is data lost. Momentum lost. Confidence lost. This was supposed to be the beginning of a new works era with Honda. Instead, day 2 felt like a warning. And if those 4 seconds are real, not illusion, not strategy, then this is not just a slow start. It is a red flag. And the deeper we look into that Honda unit, the more uncomfortable the questions become. Now we move into the most uncomfortable possibility. What if this is not a mapping issue? What if this is not conservative testing? What if the Honda power unit has a structural limitation that cannot be unlocked overnight? Because there is a difference between protecting an engine and hiding a weakness. And right now, Aston Martin looks like a team protecting something fragile. Let's break this down carefully. When an engine is limited to lower revolutions, there are usually two reasons: thermal instability or vibration risk. Both are serious. If the internal components cannot sustain higher rotational speeds without overheating, the cooling architecture becomes the bottleneck. And cooling is not just an engine issue. It is a chassis issue. Which brings Adrian Newey into the spotlight. The AMR26 has extremely tight packaging, aggressive side pod design, minimal airflow volume around critical components. That creates aerodynamic efficiency, but it also reduces thermal margin. If Honda's new hybrid system generates more heat than anticipated, and the bodywork cannot dissipate it efficiently, you have a conflict between aero philosophy and engine reality. And that conflict does not disappear with a software update. It requires redesign. And redesign during a season is painful. But here is where the fear intensifies. Drivers are not only reporting lack of power, they are reporting drivability instability. Stroll mentioned issues on corner entry, problems during downshifts, unpredictable rear behavior under braking. That suggests synchronization issues between brake-by-wire and engine braking torque, which again connects to the hybrid system. If the MGU-K recovery phase is not perfectly aligned with combustion deceleration, the rear axle can destabilize instantly. That is not just slow. That is uncomfortable. And when drivers lose confidence in braking stability, lap time evaporates. Now imagine trying to develop a car when your drivers cannot attack corner entry. You lose reference points. You lose setup direction. Everything becomes conservative. And conservative development in a new regulation cycle is deadly. But here is the deeper strategic problem. Aston Martin is a full works Honda partner. This is not a customer-engine relationship. This is a flagship collaboration. If the power unit underperforms publicly, both brands absorb the impact. And Honda's return to Formula One under this new identity was supposed to erase the ghosts of the mid-2010s. Instead, whispers of McLaren Honda 2.0 are already circulating. That comparison alone creates pressure. Because Honda knows how quickly public confidence can collapse. And Aston Martin cannot afford to be patient. They built a new facility. They hired elite personnel. They positioned themselves as future title contenders. This was not supposed to be a rebuilding year. Yet right now, the internal focus has shifted from performance to reliability survival. And that is a psychological blow. Because when a team enters a season aiming to fight at the front but ends up fighting to complete race distance, morale fractures fast. Fernando Alonso understands this pattern. He has lived it before. A promising project that becomes a transition year. And at this stage of his career, patience is limited. If early races confirm the Bahrain deficit, internal pressure will rise. Public statements will sharpen. And Honda will be forced into rapid response mode. But here is the ultimate question building beneath everything. Can those missing 4 seconds be unlocked? Or are they structural? If it is purely engine mapping, calibration, and fuel synchronization, there is hope. If it is cooling architecture and hybrid integration at design level, the timeline stretches months. And in modern Formula One, months are seasons. Testing was supposed to generate optimism. Instead, it has generated doubt. Aston Martin is not just chasing Ferrari. Right now, they are looking over their shoulder at teams they expected to beat comfortably. That shift in competitive positioning changes everything. Sponsors notice. Media narratives shift. Confidence erodes. And once a team enters a season labeled as struggling, every setback feels amplified. But here is what makes this situation truly critical. We have only seen controlled testing conditions. No full race simulations under pressure. No wheel-to-wheel duels. No safety car restarts. If the engine is already running in protective mode in testing, what happens in race conditions where drivers demand maximum deployment lap after lap? Will Honda allow full power? Or will Aston Martin be forced to manage energy even more aggressively than rivals? If that becomes the pattern, the gap will not shrink. It will grow. And suddenly, the dream of a championship challenge in the new era turns into a fight just to escape the midfield. Bahrain was supposed to be the beginning of something historic for Aston Martin. Instead, it may have revealed the first crack in the foundation. And if that crack runs through the heart of the Honda power unit? This story is only just beginning. And now we reach the moment that could define this entire project. Because if Aston Martin cannot solve this quickly, the consequences will not stay inside the garage. They will explode outward. Think about the timing. New regulations. New Honda partnership. Adrian Newey's influence beginning to shape the car. Massive expectations from investors and sponsors. This was supposed to be the launch of a new competitive cycle. Instead, Bahrain has introduced doubt before the first race has even happened. And doubt in Formula One spreads fast. If the AMR26 arrives at the opening Grand Prix still running reduced power modes, the narrative will harden instantly. Not temporary issue. Not early days. But fundamental weakness. And once that label sticks, every result reinforces it. But here is where the pressure becomes internal. Engineers begin questioning architecture decisions. Was the packaging too aggressive? Was cooling sacrificed for aero efficiency? Was the hybrid integration rushed? Was the late start to the project more costly than expected? Those conversations do not stay quiet for long. Because development resources are finite. If you redirect engineers towards solving reliability and thermal instability, aerodynamic upgrades slow down. If aerodynamic upgrades slow down, lap time recovery slows down. And in a new regulation era, the first half of the season defines the competitive order. Fall behind early, and catching up becomes exponentially harder. But here is another layer that makes this situation even more delicate. Honda's reputation. They returned with confidence. With pride. With a desire to prove they had mastered hybrid integration after years of experience. If this engine is seen as underpowered or fragile, the reputational impact is enormous. Manufacturers enter Formula One for prestige, not for embarrassment. And that creates urgency. Urgency leads to rapid fixes. Rapid fixes carry risk. Risk can create further instability. And suddenly the cycle feeds itself. Now consider Fernando Alonso. He is not a rookie building experience. He is a veteran chasing one final competitive chapter. If early races confirm that the car lacks raw power and stability, he will not stay silent forever. His tone will shift. Subtle at first. Technical. Then sharper. Public pressure becomes leverage. And once a driver of his stature questions progress openly, the entire paddock listens. But let's step back and ask the central question. What if Honda solves the anomaly within days? Unlocks full revolutions. Stabilizes deployment. Fixes thermal mapping. Suddenly, the AMR26 gains 20 km per hour on the straight. Gains confidence under braking. Gains 3 seconds. Then the entire narrative flips. From crisis to comeback. From doubt to resurgence. That possibility still exists. But here is the reality. Testing time is limited. Development windows are short. And other teams are not standing still. Ferrari is refining. Red Bull is optimizing. Mercedes is stabilizing. While Aston Martin is diagnosing. That difference in focus matters. Because while others are polishing performance, Aston Martin is trying to unlock basic functionality. And that is why Bahrain felt so heavy. Not because of one slow lap. Not because of one engine warning. But because of the pattern. 4 seconds off pace. Engine capped at lower revolutions. Top speed deficit of roughly 20 km per hour. Energy deployment irregularity. Cooling sensitivity. Drivability concerns under braking.